My golden child brother stole my great uncle's war medals and refused to return them. They were always his, my mom insisted. But I turned the tables, got the bigger prize, and built a trap that snaps shut on him every year. All right, so picture this. I, 18 male, final year of high school, just trying to coast through without too much damage. My foster brother Todd, 15 male, a sophomore, and somehow the center of my parents' entire universe. You'd think he cured cancer the way they hype him up, but really, the kid just dribbles a basketball. Todd got dropped into our family when I was 3. He was the sad little orphan who needed extra kindness. My parents told me this like a million times, as if it was my life's mission to make sure Todd never felt anything other than VIP treatment. Guess who took that message and ran with it? Todd. By the time he could tie his own shoes, he was already the golden child, and my parents were acting like he was made of glass while I was just some side project. Take last Friday night. Todd had a home game. He's a starter, which, to hear him talk about it, basically makes him LeBron James Jr. The gym was packed. I wasn't in the bleachers with a foam finger, oh no. I was behind the concession stand, scooping nachos like a minimum wage worker who doesn't even get paid. Mom and Dad? They were front and center, clapping like trained seals every time Todd touched the ball. I couldn't hear myself think over the parents screaming like their mortgage depended on the scoreboard. Of course Todd had a good game. He drained a couple of threes, pulled some flashy moves, and suddenly you'd think he discovered the cure for traffic. At the end, a local reporter came over to interview him. He's 15, sweaty, holding the ball like it's a holy relic, and the guy shoves a mic in his face. Todd, who do you credit for your success? Without missing a beat, Todd goes, my parents. They've always believed in me. Cut to Mom and Dad standing behind the reporter, practically glowing. Meanwhile, I'm off to the side smelling like fake cheese because I just refilled the nacho machine. He didn't even throw me a mention. Not a shout out to my brother for making sure the snacks didn't run out. Nothing. I'm background noise in Todd's movie. After the game, we headed over to my great uncle's place. He's my mom's uncle, Korean war vet. Tough old guy who could probably still beat half the dads in that gym in an arm wrestle. His house is basically a museum. His den looks like it belongs in a history documentary. Uniforms, medals, stacks of logs, and even a ceremonial cutlass on the wall. My personal favorite is the old Navy wristwatch he keeps on the shelf. Thing ticks whenever it feels like it. You'll be staring at it, it's moving fine. Then suddenly the second hand freezes like it just decided, nah. We were sitting around his den when Todd started staring at the framed medals on the wall, like he was already writing the Instagram caption for when he showed them off. Great uncle noticed, and without even looking at Todd, turned to me and said, these are meant for someone who actually respects them. Loud. Direct. No room for misunderstanding. Todd laughed like he didn't care, but his ears turned red. Then great uncle pulled out one of his logbooks, flipped through until he found a name. Turns out, same last name as Todd's birth family. He didn't make a speech or anything, just tapped the page and said, funny how history loops back. Todd suddenly found his phone super interesting. I tucked that little detail away. We headed home later, and that's when the rulebook came out again. Todd's curfew? Whenever team bonding finishes, which really meant whenever he feels like walking in. My curfew? 9 p.m. on the dot. I pointed out that I'm literally 18 and could legally move out if I wanted. Dad just said, house rules. Todd smirked like the Joker in the corner. The next morning, Todd got a delivery. Brand new custom basketball sneakers, bright enough to be seen from space, supposedly for ankle support. Retail price? Way more than my entire shoe collection. Dad swiped his card like he was buying gum. I asked if I could replace my busted school shoes, the ones with soles peeling off like bad duct tape. Dad told me to make a budget and look for something practical. At school, my history teacher overheard me talking about my great uncle's logs with a friend. She perked up and asked me about them, and I actually had answers. Ports, dates, battles. I'd read them. Todd wasn't around, but when he heard about it later, he acted like he knew all about the logs too. Yeah, that's my family history. I've read them before. Sure, Todd. If Todd ever touched those logs, he'd probably autograph them and sell them on eBay. The whole week was just more of the same. Todd's teammates hyped him up like he was a celebrity. Teachers gave him the benefit of the doubt when he didn't do homework. Parents bent over backward for him. Mom whipped up protein shakes in the morning. Dad chauffeured him to practice early. And me? I was told to take out the trash. Real balanced system we've got here. That weekend, great uncle stopped by. He doesn't say much when Todd's in the room, but he made another pointed comment about how some things should go to people who take care of them. He looked straight at me while saying it. Todd rolled his eyes so hard I thought they'd get stuck. Parents pretended not to hear a thing. That night, I wound up fiddling with the Navy watch. The second hand ticked, stalled, ticked again. And honestly, it felt about right. That watch was basically my family in a nutshell. Works fine when it wants to, freezes whenever it feels like it, and somehow I'm always the one expected to deal with it. The holiday weekend rolls around, and like every year, the plan is to camp out at my great uncle's place. He lives a couple of towns over, and his house is basically a time capsule for the Korean War. Same routine every time. We eat way too much food. Todd pretends he cares about family history, and my parents keep telling me to make him feel welcome, like we haven't been stuck under the same roof for 12 years already. This year, though, great uncle decides he's done with hints. We're all sitting in his den, the room that smells like old books and floor polish, when he takes the framed medals off the wall. He doesn't whisper it, doesn't pull me aside in private. Nope. He straight up hands them to me, in front of everyone. These are yours. Keep them safe. I hold them like they're made of glass because, family heirloom and all that. Todd is sitting 3 feet away, trying to smile, but it looks like he's swallowed a lemon. My parents clap politely, like great uncle just gave me a participation trophy instead of something with actual value. Not even 5 minutes later, Todd clears his throat. So, I've got a history club display coming up. It would be really powerful to show these medals to the school, since it's my family too. I'm about to say no when Mom slices in, "Sweetie, don't be selfish. Let him borrow them. Think how meaningful it'll be for him." Dad doesn't even hesitate. He nods like a ref and adds, "And if you're not willing, you can handle everyone's errands for the next month." I remind them the medals were just gifted to me. Legally mine. Mom shakes her head, voice flat. They were always his. That hit harder than the threat. Like I'd imagined the moment great uncle pressed the medals into my hands. Like I was just a placeholder until Todd smiled wide enough. In this house, be gracious always translated to hand it over and shut up. So I pass the medals to Todd, but I pin him with a look. 1 weekend. Then they're coming back. Fast forward 2 weeks. Display's long over. Medals are still missing. I ask Todd where they are. He gives me this smirk and goes, "Relax, I'm just holding on to them. You're not even into this stuff like I am." Excuse me? I've actually read the logbooks and listened to great uncle's stories. Todd thinks Korean War was a Call of Duty expansion pack, but sure, he's the expert. Then I see the photos. Todd posted pictures on Instagram, standing next to the medals like he just got knighted. Caption: "Honored to carry my family's legacy forward. Not borrowed from my brother. Not gifted to the wrong person. Just straight up fraud." Comments rolling in from his teammates. "Bro, that's so cool. You deserve it." Parents from school liking the post. Meanwhile, my phone is blowing up with people asking why I never mentioned my family's medals. I do some digging and find out Todd went the extra mile. He didn't just borrow the medals. He actually remounted them on a new backing board, took off the original card that had my name on it, and replaced it with one that says, "I kid you not, Todd's Family Heritage," like he's running his own museum. I took a photo of the new display when I found it in his friend's garage, sent it to myself, saved it in 3 different places, because I knew this was going to turn into a circus. When I confronted Todd, he hit me with, "Why are you making this a big deal? It's not like you even care about this stuff." I told him to give them back. He shrugged. Parents got involved, which you'd think would help, but nope. They went with their greatest hits album. Don't create drama. Be the bigger person. And of course, Todd's been through a lot. So I decided to cut the nonsense and just take them back. One night when Todd was out, I grabbed the medals from his room and stuck them in my closet. You'd think that would be the end of it. Nope. Next day, Todd storms into the kitchen and announces that I broke into his room and stole his property. My parents, without missing a beat, tell me I'm grounded for escalating the situation. Escalating? The medals were handed to me by great uncle himself, in front of witnesses. But apparently, family law in our house is just whatever makes Todd stop pouting. So while Todd is strutting around school, bragging about his medals and showing off his new fake family heritage label, I'm sitting in my room serving a 1-week sentence for the crime of existing. And of course, Todd makes sure to remind me every chance he gets. He'll walk past my door, pause just long enough to say, "Thanks for keeping them safe for me," then keep moving. Great uncle doesn't know about this yet because I haven't figured out how to tell him without it sounding like an episode of Jerry Springer. But the next time we visit, you better believe I'm laying it all out. Because if Todd thinks he can just rebrand my inheritance like it's his new pair of sneakers, he's in for a surprise. So after Todd's little rebranding project with my great uncle's medals, I realized if I didn't start building receipts, I'd end up erased from my own family's history. Apparently, in this house, legal ownership means nothing if Todd can pout hard enough. So I went full accountant. Photos, timestamps, audio recordings. If Todd wanted to run a fake museum, fine. I'd build the archive. I started with the logs. Great uncle had piles of these leather-bound books with handwriting tighter than my school's budget. I took pictures of every page, ports, dates, names, the whole thing. Even the weird doodles he'd drawn in the margins. Todd wouldn't know what half those terms even meant. If you asked him what starboard was, he'd probably say a Hollywood company. Then I sat down with great uncle and actually recorded him talking about the stuff. He's old school, so I had to explain that I wasn't filming him for TikTok. Once he realized I was serious, he told stories about storms at sea, sailors pulling double shifts, and even a scuffle in port where he swore he accidentally broke a guy's nose with a crate lid. Stuff Todd could never fake. Meanwhile, Todd's not slowing down. If anything, he's doubling down. He decides to set up a halftime display at one of his basketball games. Posters of himself dunking? Sure. But he also drags along the medals, with his shiny fake Todd's Family Heritage label, and sets them up on a table near the gym entrance. Like it's the Todd exhibit starring Todd, curated by Todd. I walk up because, those are mine. One of his teammates blocks me. Sorry, only History Club members allowed behind the table. I ask since when Todd even goes to History Club. The guy shrugs and says Todd joined last week. Shocker. Todd sees me and waves like he's a politician. Glad you could come check it out. Pretty cool display, right? Cool display? It's literally my inheritance. I tell him I'm taking the medals back after the game. He smiles for the crowd and mutters, good luck proving it. Parents, of course, see the scene and immediately step in with their script. Mom whispers, don't make drama here, sweetie. Let him have his moment. A dad throws in, it's good for the school. Think of the bigger picture. Yeah, the bigger picture where Todd's face is plastered on every hallway wall. That night, a storm rolled through, knocked out power for a couple hours. Todd was at a teammate's house, probably bragging about his fake heritage. I saw my chance. I biked over to the garage where he'd been storing the original backing board, the one with my name on it that he swapped out. It was still there, propped against some boxes. I grabbed it and left. Didn't break a lock, didn't smash anything, just picked up what was mine. The next morning, Todd threw a fit, accused me of breaking into private property and stealing his stuff. My parents? They sided with him, naturally. Grounded me again. I asked how it was theft if I was just taking back what my great uncle literally handed me in front of them. Dad said, you escalated things. Mom said, you should try to understand how hard this is for him. Right, it's so hard being the star athlete with brand new sneakers and unlimited curfews. My heart bleeds. I got to a point where it felt like whatever I did in that house didn't matter. If I aced a test, no one noticed. If Todd made a layup at practice, it was a family celebration. After a while, I stopped bothering to compete. So instead of wasting more energy arguing with parents who already picked their favorite, I decided to go see the one person who actually seemed to see me, my great uncle. That weekend, I showed up at his place, not even with a plan. He took one look at me and asked why I looked like someone had kicked my dog. I told him everything. How Todd slapped a fake label on the medals. How he paraded them at his game. How my parents grounded me for escalating when I tried to get them back. He listened the whole time, didn't interrupt, just sat there with that steady Navy stare of his. Then, without even hesitating, he pushed the plate of food in front of him aside, reached for the phone, and said, hand me that. Next thing I know, he's dialing his attorney. Calm as anything. Like this was just a routine chore. We're changing the will, he said. Just like that. Now this is where Todd's smug little operation hit a wall. Because up until then, it was just my word against his. But great uncle wasn't playing games anymore. He listed off exactly what was being transferred to me. Not just the medals, but his entire collection. Navy dress blues, every photo album, every logbook, all the letters, the ceremonial cutlass, and that busted old watch. And here's the kicker. He added conditions. I'd get legal custody at 18. The trustee would verify every year that I still had them. And if I didn't, everything defaulted to a museum. Plus, if I ever lost possession, my parents' share of the estate froze. I almost laughed out loud. Todd could spin his Instagram captions all he wanted. But now, there was an actual legal safety net. Try explaining family heritage to a lawyer, buddy. Of course, my parents weren't thrilled when they found out later. Mom gave me the whole, you didn't have to involve lawyers line. Dad muttered something about family should handle things privately. Funny how privately always means Todd gets his way. Todd, on the other hand, was livid. He tried to play it off in front of his friends like it didn't matter, but I caught him ranting in the driveway one night about how unfair it was. He said I didn't even care about the items, which is hilarious because the only thing he cares about is posting pictures of himself next to them. So now I had proof, a legal plan, and a growing pile of receipts. Todd still had his fake label and a bunch of gullible teammates backing him up, but the tide was turning. He just didn't know it yet. Great uncle didn't mess around. When he said he was updating the will, I thought maybe it was just talk, a warning shot to get my parents to stop letting Todd run his little museum scam. But no, a couple months later, the guy passes, and suddenly it's game day. We're all crammed into some bland lawyer's office that smelled like paper and stress. The guy in the suit starts reading through Great Uncle's will. He lists off money stuff first, which barely registers because I know that's not where the real show is. Then he hits the personal items. Medals, navy dress blues, ship logs, letters, photo albums, ceremonial cutlass, and wristwatch, he says, to be left in full custodial ownership of my name. Custody effective immediately, legal transfer at 18, annual trustee verification required. Non-compliance results in immediate museum donation. In addition, if the heir is not in possession at any annual check, parental distributions are frozen until the heir regains custody. Translation: I own all of it, I keep it, and if Todd tries his little heritage stunt again, not only do I still win, but my parents also get their wallet slapped shut until I win harder. The lawyer slides over a folder thick with photos, serial numbers, and documents. Basically a nice try, Todd's starter pack. My parents look like someone just told them curfews apply to adults. Mom clears her throat, goes, We'll manage. Dad says, family should avoid legal entanglements, which is lawyer speak for, please don't cost me money. Todd? He's sitting there looking like his basketball team just lost by 50. He doesn't say much in the office, but when we leave, he's muttering under his breath about unfair and rigged, real original arguments. A week later, our school hosts a memorial event for veterans. Guess who decides he's the man for the job? Me. Armed with my paperwork, recordings of Great Uncle's voice, and a QR code linked to an oral history I put online, I set up a display. The medals, the uniform, photos, all labeled properly. Courtesy of me, custodial owner. I even ran copies of the trustee documents for anyone nosy enough to question it. The exhibit looked sharp. Teachers complimented it. Students stopped to actually learn something instead of just pretending to. I was finally the one controlling the narrative. Enter Todd, stage left, acting like he owns the building. He struts up with a couple teammates, sees the label, and his eyes bug out. You can't just claim all this, he says, loud enough to draw a crowd. This is my family too. I don't even blink. I point at the paperwork binder sitting on the table. Read the line that says custodian, out loud. Todd waves it off. Paper doesn't matter. Legacy matters. Legacy? This dude failed a quiz last month on World War II because he thought the Allies were a basketball team. Crowds gathering, whispers starting, and Todd doubles down. He pulls out his fake label, the one he printed weeks ago, and tries to tape it over mine. He actually thought that was going to work. I stop him, hold up my phone, and hit play on an audio recording. Great Uncle's voice fills the hall. I'm leaving these items to my grandchild. He's the one who respects them. He'll keep them safe. Dead silence. Then my history teacher, who I'd looped in weeks earlier, steps forward. She's holding a copy of the signed gift note from when Great Uncle first handed me the medals. This, she says, is the documented transfer. End of discussion. Todd freezes, like he's just realized the scoreboard doesn't have his name on it. He stammers something about family connection. That's when I drop the photo. Pulled it straight from Great Uncle's wall. Him standing next to a young sailor with the same last name as Todd's birth family. Proof that, yeah, Todd's family history overlaps, just not in the way he wants. See this? I say. That sailor was your grandfather. That's your link. You don't get to rewrite mine. The crowd eats it up. For once, the spotlight isn't on Todd sinking a three-pointer. It's on me, with actual evidence. Later that night at dinner, the meltdown hits full force. Todd slams his fork down and yells about how unfair it is. Mom tells me I could have been more understanding. Dad says, we're a family, not a courtroom. I fire back. Tell that to the lawyer who read the will. Todd accuses me of making him look stupid in public. I tell him, you did that yourself when you taped a fake label on my display. At this point, I'm sick of fighting. So I throw him a bone. Look, you clearly want to be involved. Fine. I'll let you write a sidebar for the next exhibit. You talk about your grandfather, the sailor, your perspective, but it goes under my ownership, my display, my rules. He stares at me, jaw tight, then shakes his head. Forget it. You'll regret this. I laugh. Yeah, because I regret owning what's legally mine. He storms off to his room, slams the door, and immediately starts posting vague stories on Instagram about betrayal and fake brothers. Classic Todd. But here's the thing. Up until now, it's always been Todd with the upper hand. The sneakers, the curfews, the parents who never stop reminding me to be gracious. This time, in front of everyone, he got shut down. And not by me screaming louder, but by evidence. By receipts. By the fact that great uncle didn't trust him in the first place. For once, Todd's golden child pass didn't work. He got blocked by reality, and he hated it. If there's one thing consistent about Todd, it's that he doesn't quit even when he's already lost. You'd think after getting roasted at the school exhibit, complete with audio recordings and signed paperwork, he'd retreat and try to rebuild his reputation. But no. Todd operates on the logic of, if I can't win fair, I'll break the board and claim victory. The first trustee audit was coming up, which meant one thing. Todd had to make a move. See, great uncle wasn't stupid. He knew my parents would fold at the first sign of Todd's crocodile tears, so he wrote a system that didn't care about feelings. A lawyer would show up once a year and check that I still had the items. If I didn't, everything shipped to a museum, and my parents' benefits got frozen like a busted laptop. Todd's options were limited. Sabotage me, or accept that his legacy was one Instagram caption away from being exposed forever. And Todd accepting reality? That was never going to happen. So, a week before the audit, I walk into the storage room and see water pooling under the trunk. My first thought is, great, the house is falling apart. Then I look up and see the radiator pipe with a fresh crack. Not a natural, I've been rusting for 30 years crack. More like, someone hit me with a wrench until it cried. Right above where I keep the heirlooms. Lucky for me, I don't trust Todd as far as I could throw him. I had the trunk on cinder blocks, everything inside packed in acid-free sleeves. Nothing got ruined, but the intent was obvious. The world's least subtle sabotage attempt. And then, like he rehearsed it, Todd strolls in 10 minutes later carrying towels. Oh, wow, what happened here? Good thing I came to help. Yeah, because 15-year-olds always walk around with towels ready for plumbing emergencies. Totally natural. I didn't confront him. I just kept cleaning. Because honestly, I wanted more ammo. Later, I checked the neighbor's doorbell camera. Sure enough, an hour before the leak, Todd's on video sneaking into the house with a gym bag. He's so dumb he basically left a signed confession in HD. While I'm processing that, I get an email from a burner account. No subject line, body just says, ready to buy the medals. Cash available. Custody can transfer by display. As if property law works like Pokemon cards. Obviously, Todd had been talking to some sketchy collector, because no random stranger knows I have medals unless Todd opened his big mouth. I screenshot the email, printed it, saved it to 3 different drives, and forwarded it to the attorney. If Todd wanted to get shady, I was going to make it impossible for him to crawl out later. Audit day finally comes. The trustee shows up with a clipboard and the enthusiasm of someone who's seen every family fight under the sun. He doesn't care about my parents, doesn't care about Todd's sob story, doesn't care about mom whispering, be gracious. He's there for facts. I lay everything out on the dining table. Medals, uniform, logs, letters, the cutlass, and the watch. I've got serial numbers printed, UV marks on the textiles to prove authenticity, scanned copies of the logs, and even QR codes linking to recordings of great uncle explaining each item. If Todd wanted to try something, he'd have to explain how my voice magically became great uncle's in the recordings. Trustee checks everything off, cross-references the photos in his folder with the items in front of him, tests the UV marks, nods, signs the verification form and says, looks good. See you next year. Done. Clean. Binding. Todd, of course, can't stand it. He waits until the trustee leaves and then starts whining. He staged this whole thing. You don't understand. He's manipulating everyone. Manipulating. My man, you're the one who printed fake labels and tried to drown a radiator. He corners me in the kitchen later. You're making this all about you. I told him flat out, it is about me. That's what ownership means. You should look it up sometime. Dictionary's free. Parents? They're still stuck in their default script. Mom sighs and says, don't make a fuss. We don't need the neighbors hearing. Dad throws in, it's embarrassing when you two fight. Not embarrassing when Todd floods a room. Not embarrassing when he tries to sell family heirlooms to a back alley collector. Nope. Embarrassing when I point out the obvious. At school, Todd tries to spin it. He tells his teammates, I don't even care about the stuff. He just hoards it for attention. Right. That's why you risked plumbing damage and sent emails to Craigslist-level collectors. Because you don't care. Teachers overhear his whining and shake their heads. Some of his teammates nod along, but even they look confused. You can only fake legacy so long before people realize you don't know what a logbook is. Meanwhile, I've got the signed audit papers filed, the video of Todd sneaking in with a gym bag, and the shady email chain forwarded to the attorney. Todd's sitting on soggy towels and his own ego. And the best part? He doesn't even realize the trap he's in. Great uncle designed this whole system knowing Todd would try something. The yearly audits, the museum fallback, the parental penalty clause, it's all a giant mousetrap. And Todd keeps walking into it with both feet. So yeah, the first audit went perfectly. Todd tried sabotage, failed. Tried a shady collector, failed. Tried spinning the narrative, failed. And now he gets to spend the next year watching me do it again, and again, and again, while the lawyer keeps stamping papers that say, custodial owner, not Todd. Sometimes the only thing better than winning once is watching your opponent lose the same game every year forever. When the trustee dropped off that thick envelope with, to the captains of this house, scrawled across the front, I already knew it wasn't going to be some warm goodbye. Great uncle didn't do warm goodbyes. He did orders. Dad reads it out loud. And it's basically the family's first official performance review. You mistake quiet for peace, the letter says. Quiet is what happens when the smaller voice learns you won't listen. 2 boys, 1 standard. Curfew parity. Spending parity. Respect parity. Stewardship sits with, it says my name. Stop making him invisible. No sugarcoating, no love always. Just a written beatdown. Mom looks like she swallowed a lemon. Dad clears his throat 3 times like he's buffering. Todd mutters, whatever, under his breath. Then Dad shocks me. He puts the letter down and says, we're fixing this, starting today. And he actually means it. He grabbed the family whiteboard, the same one that usually listed boring stuff like dinners, or when Todd's practice was. Without saying a word, he wiped off Todd practice 6 p.m., and in its place wrote in huge block letters, errands. Todd handles them. The list fills up quick. Groceries, dry cleaning, DMV title for the scooter, library books, archival sleeves from the craft store, museum drop-off, and an apology note to Ms. Pina, my history teacher. And just for fun, Dad throws in, wash the car. Todd stares like someone just told him Fortnite got banned. This is insane. Why me? Mom doesn't even blink. Because you've had it easy long enough. You'll do every one of these. With receipts. Dad tosses him the car keys. Go. Todd waves his hands around. You can't just... I cut him off. You can. He did. Welcome to errands, champ. The meltdown is glorious, but eventually Todd storms out, whiteboard photos saved on his phone like a court sentence. 2 hours later, the texts start. Photo of parsley at the grocery store. What's flat leaf? I reply, the one that smells like competence. Next, photo from the craft store. What are archival sleeves? Me. They're for the letters you tried to curate. Ask an employee. Out loud, use your big boy voice. Then comes DMV hell. Todd sends a selfie looking like he aged 10 years in line. Line is biblical. I reply, take a number. Sign line 7B. Don't improvise. Last time you improvised, you almost donated family history to your ego. By the end of the day, miss. Pena herself texts me. Got the note. He read it out loud, no eye roll. Maybe the first real thing he's done all year. When Todd finally drags himself home, he dumps grocery bags, archival sleeves, and a DMV receipt on the counter. Proof, he grumbles. Then he pulls a freshly printed museum tag from his backpack. Korean War Service display. Courtesy of OP, custodial owner. He sets it down like it burned his hands. Correct label, he mutters. I can't resist. Look at that. Curating reality. Finally. That same night, my phone buzzes with a voicemail from the museum director. I call back and they hit me with the best news. I've been offered the Harbor Fellowship, paid curatorial internship, plus a scholarship for my first year of college, all in great uncle's name. I don't even hesitate. I say yes. Dad hears me on the phone and for once doesn't downplay it. He just nods and says, proud of you. Mom agrees. Todd sulks in the corner like someone stole his sneakers. Over the next week, Todd lives the errand life. He delivers dry cleaning, stands in library return lines, drives to the museum to drop off a box of duplicate safe prints, even washes the car without recording it for Instagram. Each time, he has to provide receipts because Dad checks them off the whiteboard. Todd complains nonstop, but the more he complains, the more obvious it is he's never had to do anything remotely responsible before. One night, while he's scrubbing the car, I step outside. "You missed a spot." He smirks, tired. "Of course I did. That's your brand, right?" Pointing out the missed spots. I shrug. Accuracy. Try it sometime. Then I hold up the corrected museum tag. "This goes up Monday. If you want to write a panel about your grandfather, the sailor, I'll put it under my label. Your perspective, my display." Todd pauses, then nods. "Yeah, okay." Inside, Mom updates the fridge whiteboard. Equal curfews, equal allowance rules, equal expectations. And taped right next to it is Great Uncle's letter, staring us down every time we grab milk. For the first time in my life, I'm not the be gracious sibling. I'm the custodian, the one with receipts, with the fellowship, with the collection in my name. Todd can still dribble a ball and bask in high school glory, but now he runs my errands too. That night, I wind the Navy watch and set it next to the medals. The second hand ticks steady. No stalls. Like even the watch knows balance finally showed up in this house.